Chapter 9. The Power of Environment. You can have the right mindset, the right goals, and the right focus, but if your environment works against you, progress becomes a fight. We often underestimate how much our surroundings shape our behavior, emotions, and energy. Think about it. You act differently at a library than you do at a concert. You speak differently in a peaceful park than in a noisy street. Your brain constantly reads your surroundings, and those cues quietly decide what kind of person you're allowed to be. Psychologists call this environmental conditioning. Your surroundings influence your habits far more than willpower ever can. That's why people who want change but stay in toxic environments often slide back into old patterns, not because they're weak, but because their world keeps whispering the same story. Change doesn't just come from within. It begins when your environment stops arguing with your growth. There's a famous experiment that proves this perfectly. Researchers placed two identical plants in separate rooms. One was exposed to gentle, positive words and music. The other heard constant noise, chaos, and negative speech. Weeks later, the first plant grew strong and tall. The other wilted. Same water, same light, different energy. Humans aren't that different. Our minds grow or fade depending on the energy that surrounds us. When you're around people who believe in you, your confidence grows without effort. But when you spend time around doubt, gossip, or fear, your energy starts to sink, even if your goals stay the same. The lesson isn't to blame your surroundings. It's to become intentional about them. You can't grow roses in polluted soil. I saw this truth early in my career. Back then, I worked in a space where negativity was the norm. Every conversation was about what couldn't be done. I started to notice that even when I had ideas, I'd keep them to myself, afraid they'd be shot down. It wasn't lack of motivation, it was the weight of the room. When I finally moved to a new workspace, surrounded by people chasing progress, everything changed. Ideas flowed again. Work felt lighter. I wasn't more skilled, I was just in an environment that matched my goals. That's when I realized something powerful. If your environment doesn't challenge you to rise, it will quietly train you to settle. And that's true not just in work, but in relationships, habits, and even digital spaces. What you surround yourself with becomes the script your mind rehearses every day. So how do you design an environment that works for you, not against you? Step 1. Audit your surroundings. Who and what gets your time, your energy, your attention? List them. Friends, apps, spaces, sounds. Then ask, does this lift me up or drain me? Step 2. Adjust one small element at a time. You don't have to disappear from your world. Just reshape it. Change your morning playlist, your workspace lighting, or who you text most. Small shifts create new momentum. Step 3. Add reminders of your higher self. Quotes, goals, music, scents. Things that trigger the energy you want to live in. Your brain connects with repetition, and soon that energy becomes your normal. The goal isn't to build a perfect environment. It's to build one that supports the person you're becoming. Every habit, every dream, every transformation begins there. So take a look around. Because if your environment is a mirror, it might be time to adjust the reflection. Chapter 10. The Shadow of Doubt. Every dream, every goal, every journey meets one enemy, doubt. It doesn't attack you at the start. It waits until you've done the work, when you're tired, uncertain, and too close to give up. Doubt whispers, "Maybe this isn't for you." And most people listen. They mistake exhaustion for failure and walk away right before results appear. Research in behavioral psychology calls this goal fatigue. When progress slows, your brain starts protecting you by lowering motivation. It tells you to stop, not because you can't do it, but because it wants to save energy. The problem is, that's often the moment you were one step away from breakthrough. Success doesn't belong to the most confident. It belongs to those who keep walking, even when confidence disappears. History is full of people who almost quit. J.K. Rowling was rejected 12 times before a publisher finally accepted Harry Potter. Imagine if she stopped at 11. Colonel Sanders was told no over 1,000 times before someone said yes to his chicken recipe. At age 65. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before creating a working light bulb. The lesson isn't that they were geniuses. It's that they kept showing up long after logic said to stop. Their faith outlasted their doubt. People often say, maybe they were lucky. But luck is just persistence meeting opportunity. Most people never reach that meeting point. They turn back too soon. Every time you push through doubt, you build a new layer of inner strength. That strength becomes confidence, not from words, but from proof that you can survive hard days. I've faced that shadow myself. When my first business hit financial problems, I started to question everything. The same voice that once said, "You can," began saying, "Maybe it's time to stop." I had investors waiting, bills stacking up, and days where motivation was gone. But I remembered something. Every person who made it big once stood in that same storm. They felt fear, panic, and fatigue, but they didn't let those emotions make decisions for them. So I stayed, rebuilt, and step by step, it turned around. That experience taught me the truth. Doubt is a test, not a signal to quit. It's the universe asking, do you really want this? When you keep moving through doubt, you stop being a dreamer and start becoming a finisher. So how do you defeat doubt when it shows up? Step 1. Expect it. When you start anything meaningful, doubt is part of the journey. It's not a warning, it's proof that you're stretching beyond your comfort zone. Step 2. Separate emotion from evidence. Feeling uncertain doesn't mean you're failing. Ask yourself, what facts do I have? If progress is slow, it's still progress. Step 3. Return to your reason. Remember why you started. Purpose is the only thing stronger than fear. The people who win aren't fearless. They just keep walking through fear long enough to reach clarity again. So, when the shadow of doubt shows up, smile at it. It means you're close. Every great story hits tension before the triumph, and your story is no different. Chapter 11. The Invisible Barrier. There's a wall that stops more people than failure ever could. It's invisible, quiet, and often disguised as logic. It's the belief that you don't deserve more. People rarely say it out loud, but you can hear it in their choices. When they turn down opportunities, undercharge for their work, or settle for relationships that drain them. They don't believe they deserve better, so they never reach for it. Psychologists call this self-worth limitation. It's when your internal value system decides how much success, love, or happiness you're allowed to have. If your self-image doesn't match your goals, your subconscious quietly sabotages you until your life fits your belief again. That's why two people can get the same opportunity, and one soars while the other collapses. It's not luck, it's self-worth. One story that illustrates this perfectly is about a man named Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks. He grew up poor in a housing project in Brooklyn. When he finally built Starbucks, he struggled to believe he belonged in boardrooms with millionaires. He said in interviews that for years he fought an inner voice whispering, "You're just a kid from the projects." That voice nearly made him sell the company early, afraid it would fall apart without someone more qualified. But he didn't. He faced the fear, stayed in the room, and proved that voice wrong, one meeting at a time. That's what breaking the barrier looks like. It's not a single moment of bravery. It's a daily decision to believe you're worthy of the life you're building. Every success story hides a self-worth story underneath it. I've felt that barrier too. When my company first reached real value, I still caught myself saying, maybe it's luck, or it won't last. Even when investors complimented the work, a part of me felt like an imposter waiting to be exposed. Then one day, I realized something. If I believed failure was a punishment, then success felt like a mistake. That belief was blocking everything. The moment I stopped asking, "Do I deserve this?" and started asking, "What can I do with this?" my entire energy changed. That's when success stopped feeling heavy and started feeling like purpose. Most people think they fear failure, but what they really fear is being seen succeeding and not feeling worthy of it. So how do you lift this invisible barrier? Step 1. Notice where you shrink. When good things happen, do you downplay them? Do you brush off compliments? That's your mind protecting an old identity. Step 2. Rewrite your worth. Say out loud, "I'm allowed to have good things." Not because you're perfect, but because you're growing. Step 3. Use gratitude as proof. When you appreciate what you already have, you remind your brain that receiving doesn't equal guilt, it equals growth. Step 4. Stay in the rooms that scare you. The only way to feel deserving is to stay long enough for comfort to catch up. Your life expands in direct proportion to what you believe you deserve. When you raise your worth, the world adjusts its reflection. So stop asking whether you're ready. Start accepting that you're worthy. That's the day the invisible wall finally breaks. Chapter 12. The Ripple Effect. Every action you take sends out waves, whether you see them or not. A word, a choice, a single moment of courage can change the direction of more lives than you'll ever meet. Most people underestimate their influence because they measure it by visibility. But life doesn't work that way. Impact doesn't start big, it starts quiet. Like a stone dropped into still water, it begins with one movement and spreads far beyond what your eyes can follow. Psychologists call this the contagion effect. Human behavior, emotions, and even energy spread like invisible currents through social connection. Your calm can calm others. Your confidence can inspire it in someone else. And your fear can pass too, if you're not aware of it. That's why self-growth isn't selfish. Every time you improve yourself, you raise the vibration of everyone around you. One small story shows this perfectly. During the Great Depression, a man named Charles Schwab ran one of the biggest steel companies in America. One day, he noticed a tired worker who looked defeated. Instead of walking past, he stopped, smiled, and said, "I appreciate what you're doing. It matters." That worker shared the story with others, and morale lifted across the factory floor. Productivity rose, and in the following months, the company recovered faster than competitors. One kind word started a ripple. That moment cost nothing. yet it created real economic change. That's how ripples work. They don't look powerful at first, but they keep moving long after you've walked away. The same is true in your own life. A small shift in how you treat others, or yourself, might be the reason someone else decides not to give up today. I've seen this happen more than once. Years ago, I spoke with someone who was ready to quit their business. They were exhausted, convinced their work didn't matter. I told them one simple thing. Someone out there is waiting for what only you can do. They didn't say much, but months later I found out they kept going, and their company started thriving. That's the ripple effect. You don't need to fix the world, just send better energy into your part of it. The current will do the rest. We're all connected in ways we can't measure. Every emotion, every act of kindness or bitterness adds to the invisible network shaping tomorrow's world. That's why your smallest actions matter more than your biggest intentions. So how do you create your own ripple? Step 1. Lead by example, not pressure. People rarely change when told what to do. They change when they see it's possible. Your consistency speaks louder than any advice. Step 2. Be aware of your energy. Before you walk into a room, take one breath and choose what you want to bring. Peace, positivity, or strength. Energy multiplies, so choose it with intention. Step 3. Celebrate small progress, yours and others. Every compliment, every well done, reinforces growth. That's how you keep the ripples alive. The world changes through small circles of kindness that keep expanding until they touch lives you'll never see. Never think your effort is wasted because it seems invisible. Ripples travel farther than sound and longer than memory. So keep creating them, in your home, in your work, in your world. Because when one person decides to rise, everyone around them starts to float a little higher too. Chapter 13. The Return to Self. Everything you've learned in this journey, focus, belief, emotion, energy, direction, all points back to one place. You. The self. Not the version that the world shaped, but the version that exists underneath it all. Most people spend their lives searching for answers in books, mentors, or systems, forgetting that the most powerful source is within them. The mind that created the problem already knows the path to the solution. It just needs space to listen. The goal of self-improvement isn't to become someone new. It's to remember who you were before fear, doubt, and noise began shaping your thoughts. Before the world told you what you can't do. Growth is not about learning more. It's about unlearning what was never true. There's a story about the sculptor Michelangelo. When people asked how he created the statue of David, he said, "I just removed everything that wasn't him." He didn't see a block of marble. He saw the masterpiece already inside it. That's what this process really is. You are the sculptor and the stone. Every time you break an old belief, every time you shift focus, every time you choose growth over fear, you're removing a little more of what's not you. And what's left is something pure, something powerful, something you can finally trust. This is what it means to return to self. Not to reach a destination, but to uncover the version of you that was always waiting beneath the surface. I've met people who searched for motivation in 100 places, but never trusted their own voice. They thought someone else had the map. But the truth is, everything outside of you is just a reminder of what's already inside. This book, these words, they're not giving you power. They're helping you remember that it was yours the whole time. When you finally stop chasing and start listening, life begins to feel lighter. You stop fighting for validation and start creating from peace. You realize that the same energy that moves the world also moves through you. You are not a receiver of power. You are the source of it. So how do you keep this connection alive? Step 1. Stay curious. Growth dies when certainty begins. Keep asking new questions about yourself, not to fix, but to understand. Step 2. Practice silence. Take moments each day without noise, screens, or distraction. That's where self speaks the loudest. Step 3. Act from alignment. Before you make decisions, ask, does this feel like truth or fear? If it feels peaceful, it's the right direction. The return to self isn't a single moment. It's a lifestyle. A rhythm of remembering who you are again and again. Before this book ends, I want to share something important. Listening once helps you begin, but listening again helps you become. Life gets loud, and the lessons that matter most, the ones about belief, focus, and energy, can fade beneath that noise. Even as I wrote this book, I found reminders I didn't know I needed. It recentered me. It reawakened me. So I encourage you to come back to this, not because you've forgotten, but because each time you return, you'll hear something new, something your current self is finally ready to understand. Growth is repetition with awareness. The more you revisit truth, the stronger it becomes. And one day, you'll notice that the voice guiding you isn't mine, it's yours. That's the moment you've truly returned to yourself. And when you reach that point, you won't need this book anymore. You'll simply be living it.